Welcome to the Salespreneur podcast. Happy to have you on, man.
Thanks, Clay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm actually really stoked about it because we're getting ready for the summer and I have some personal fitness goals. And so it's always good to keep the motivation high, being surrounded by people like you that are obviously already very motivated, but stoked to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Chase, I listened to you a few weeks ago. You were on the Silicon Slopes podcast. For people that don't know who you are, you mind just giving us a brief background?
Yeah, of course. So obviously my name is Chase Miller. I'm the founder of a company called GymShare. So, and then I also work at Adobe, specifically selling the Workfront product. So
yeah, and I feel like you have a pretty cool background. I mean, I know you said you had some time in the military. Uh, you've done athletics. You've been a personal trainer. Maybe you'll share some of those stuff throughout the show. But I feel like you have kind of a unique background. Obviously, you're building a business while being an account executive. I know it's a lot of work, and so I think especially for listeners today, we have a lot of folks who are in corporate sales that are trying to start a side hustle or have started businesses, all sorts of stuff. And I know that you've gone through that. So excited to hear more of that journey. But just that being said, how did you get into sales to begin with?
yeah, that's a great question. So I graduated from BYU, actually with a degree in Italian. I started my mission in Italy.
Okay.
And I wanted to get into finance. Like that was the goal. Like I remember playing on the BYU lacrosse team there, and like a lot of my teammates were in the finance program and stuff like that. And because of my experience in the military, it was kind of too late for me to apply to the finance program. So I'm a firm believer that there's always a way in, but sometimes it needs to be through the back door. Right. And so after I graduated from BYU, I went to my first job was at Vanguard. But I felt like I really wanted that true finance experience. Right. So I wanted to become a financial advisor. And so I transitioned to Morgan Stanley there. And I quickly realized that as a financial advisor, it's about 10% finance and about 90% sales. And I don't think a lot of financial advisors realize that when they get into the industry until it's too late. And so I found myself doing a lot more selling, and I didn't really, have a whole lot of experience in that realm. And but thankfully, there was a team out in Long Beach, California, who wanted to take me on. But the fact of the matter is that you were essentially a salesperson selling the team's financial strategy. So they really ingrained their sales approach in me. And I quickly realized that when you truly believe in what you sell, it's not selling, it's just fun, right? Because you truly are feeling it like you're making a difference in people's lives. And so from that experience, I was selling financial strategies, and a strategy that I still believe in this day, even though I'm not on that team anymore. I don't work at Morgan Stanley anymore. But I've taken that and used that in my life as I've gone to Adobe now, selling the Workfront product, which I strongly believe in and know that it changes enterprises and for the better. And even with GymShare too, helping people exercise consistently by making it fun. So kind of a long-winded answer.
Was that kind of a weird transition going from selling financial services to selling Adobe?
Not really, because when it comes to sales, at least from my experience, is that as long as you understand how the product or I guess the strategy in the financial sense works, then it's really the same thing, right? At the end of the day. As long as you believe in it and you understand how it works and you can explain it, at the end of the day, if the customer wants it, who are you to, say otherwise?
For sure. Well, and I also think that when you have a history of doing exceptional things, that it also makes it easier to do other things that are challenging, which is why you see a lot of people, yourself included, they go from being a student athlete to being able to jump into sales and do very well at it. And it's just because you've already done hard things. You've been able to stick to a disciplined activity or sport. And so being able to learn how to do sales is not that much harder, especially where you didn't even come from a business background. I mean, you studied Italian, or you're not even studying finance, and then you were able to sell finance product, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like some of those disciplines were able to cross over and help you in different industries, even though you didn't know that much about it to begin with.
Well, yeah. Like, I believe that if you have a hard work ethic, you can make it in sales, right? So, really good example, like you mentioned, my background as a student athlete, right? In lacrosse in particular, you have to throw the ball against the wall constantly to practice, right? Making sure that your ball handling skills is really good, your throwing and catching is really good, right? To me, when it comes to sales, especially financial sales, it's cold calling. It's hopping on the phone and literally treating your phone like at Morgan Stanley, we had physical phones, not digital phones like a cell phone or anything like that. And like I really felt like it was my piano, right? Because I didn't have an auto dialer or anything like that. I was just using my left hand and dialing. So the team that I was on at Morgan Stanley, the minimum requirement before you could leave that day was make 500 cold calls every day, minimum.
Wow.
And not only doing that, but he had to meet with 3 people per day too, either in person or over the phone, what have you. 3 meetings plus 500 cold calls. My actual record is 1,000 in one day, right? And so waking up, going there, we start at like when the market opened and stuff like that, and then as soon as the market closed, guess what? You're calling cell phones. You're not leaving, right? You're still going hard until it's over, right? Until people are literally asleep and you cannot call them anymore, or else it's not okay. It's not kosher anymore.
Wow, that's crazy. 1,000 calls in one day. My goal is 1,000 calls for this month right now. And so that's an insane, and especially having to do that with a hard line, typing in all those numbers, that's insane.
Yeah, granted, not everyone answered, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
for
everyone
sure.
answered, that'd be a different story. Obviously, I wanted as many answers as possible, but a lot of people just quickly listened to my pitch and then hung up. But like I was relating with lacrosse, like throwing the ball against the wall. It's just like
Mhm.
one call after the next one. Go, keep on going, don't stop. Like, because eventually you're going to get better and better and better at your craft, right? But at the same time, eventually you're going to find success. Even though it's 1,000 cold calls, right? I was able to get my 3 qualified leads that day out of 1,000. And so it's like, what have you got to do? You got to do to get the job done.
Yeah. No, that's the cool thing with sales is I do think more people can do the job than they think, just because a lot of it is that muscle memory, uh, of just doing the inputs, doing the work that it takes to be good at it. And so, but yeah, especially coming from probably never, did you ever make a cold call before you did that job?
No.
Okay, so you just got thrown like super into the deep end.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, I'm the type of person that when my back's against the wall, I will do whatever it takes to get the job done. So like my family, my wife, she's from Utah, where we live now, and she wanted to get back to Utah. So we were living in California, and my wife just wanted to be back by family, and frankly I wanted to be back by family in Utah. And so in my head I had that vision of the Utah mountains and wanting to get back and willing to do whatever it takes, and promising my wife that I will get this done. I will get us home at some point, right? And so when I arrived at that team, they were asking me like, what's your work ethic like? And have you ever done a cold call before? And I was like, no. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to start. And so started off, and because I had that vision of where I wanted to get to at the end of the day, yeah, it was really hard. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and through that whole process, but eventually, because I was staying consistent at it constantly, day in and day out, and outlasting my competition, I was able to get back home. And the team, they sent me to Utah to represent them, and that was our goal at the time. And then eventually I transitioned to Adobe just because I felt that the future is in tech, and I felt like I
For
needed to
sure.
get into tech, right?
Hmm.
So
That's incredible. And you talk about vision. I'm curious, Chase, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or is that something that's kind of evolved?
it's definitely evolved. So
Okay.
I didn't know I wanted to become an entrepreneur until I understood what my purpose in life was, my calling in life. Right. So, like, other than be a husband, father, and righteous, member of my church congregation, I feel like my calling in life, the reason I was put on this earth, is to lower the obesity rate by at least one. Through our research, we found that in 2017, the obesity rate, so the percentage of Americans who are considered obese, was 30. At the end of 2023 is 42. So it's growing at a rapid rate. And I feel like the way the fitness industry is going, that's not changing. It's still going to continue to go. And the way that, I felt like gyms today operate is disincentivizing people from actually going to the gym. So, and their ways and the reasons why is to make money, right? And so I totally get it from a business perspective, but it's completely changing the way people feel about gym and exercising and almost isolating people from the gym. And so I feel like my calling in life is to change that, right? And so that's when I decided to start my first startup, which is called Miller Fitness, which is basically kind of like, you create a workout plan, but it's like a video series, almost like
Hmm.
YouTube, but it's a paid service. But then people were like, hey, I want you to train me personally. And so that's when transitioned to Train Me. And then with Train Me, like, which was Uber for personal training to help trainers find clients and to help people get trained, right? It was having a place to train, right? And so that's when we transitioned to GymShare. So just having that vision, that calling of what I feel like I need to do to change our society, and not stopping until I achieve that, right? No matter if I have
Hmm.
to go through 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses, however long it takes, I will achieve this no matter what happens.
That's incredible. And so, and you've shared some of this story with me offline, but what is GymShare, Chase?
Yeah, so GymShare is a marketplace app that essentially provides a private gym experience to people who want to use a gym, right? And so think of it kind of like Airbnb, just for gyms. The only difference is that with like a normal gym where it's crowded and you have to possibly wait in line for equipment, rather you reserve your neighbor's home gym, which is separate from the living area, with a separate entrance to access it from the outside. And you literally type in a code, and then you let yourself in, do your thing, clean up, let yourself out. It's completely private without even interacting with the gym host, right? And so I started this company because I was going to my local big box gym here in Spanish Fork. I won't name names, uh, and I was having to wait 5-10 minutes just for a bench press, dumbbells, cable machine, treadmill, you name it. My wife, on the other hand, wouldn't even dare step foot in that gym just because she didn't feel comfortable. She experiences something called gym intimidation, which is feeling uncomfortable exercising in front of other people, and especially in a crowded space, right? And so what GymShare does is lower those barriers that are preventing people from exercising by providing that private gym experience. Because what we found is that 70% of the US population experiences that today. 70% experiences gym intimidation, which is absolutely insane. And so, like, we're helping people change the way they look at fitness, but also going to the gym so they feel comfortable. So, really good example. There's a gentleman who goes to our gym. He hasn't worked out in 6 years, and ever since joining GymShare, he's been working out every single day because he's not intimidated because there's no one else there. He's already lost 24 pounds, right, since January of this year, right? That's amazing. That's the point of GymShare, actually getting people to exercise.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that you mentioned about having to wait on machines is so real. Like that's the reason that I don't go to the gym here in Saratoga Springs is like there's just no way to get a machine ever. I mean, you go at 6 a.m., you go at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m., you just can't get anything. And so and there's a shortage, at least where I live, there's not that many gyms where you can go and work out. And so it's cool if you can just pull open an app, which I've been on your app. I'm really impressed with how clean it looks. Like the photos
Thank
look
you.
good, the reviews look good. Like the app just feels professional, which I don't like. I didn't expect that when I just saw you on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, okay, like I'll go check it out. Like maybe it's a decent website or whatever, but it's actually like it looks great. And which I think is important because when you want to go spend time somewhere, you're going to put in your personal information. You want to know that this is like a legit thing and it's not just like some Craigslist home gym that's letting me in. So
Yeah.
sorry. Anyway, I think it's awesome that I can plug into my phone and like it's literally 5 minutes away is the nearest home gym that I can reserve for 6 o'clock tomorrow. That's great.
Awesome.
Anyway, that being said, you said that you don't feel like the industry is making it easier for people to work out or to be active. What do you feel like? How is GymShare changing that? How have you seen that in your customers that are going to the gym now that wouldn't have gone to the gym before?
Yeah. It's kind of like how I mentioned before. It's a private gym experience, and so instead of walking into like your local big box gym, right, and seeing a lot of people there, right, already using the equipment and stuff like that, they're able to walk over to their neighbor's house, which in your case is 5 minutes away. Some gyms, some big box gyms are like 10, 15 minutes away, right? A lot harder for people to get to. And so the fact it's in your case 5 minutes away and you can just kind of let yourself in and let yourself out without ever interacting with anybody else. You get the equipment when you want it, how you want it, right? You get full privacy and you get to be with the people who you want to be with instead of being with random people having to worry about, like especially after COVID, like possible like sweat and germs and all that stuff. But also not having to wait in line for equipment. Rather, you're guaranteed to get the equipment that you want when you want it, right? And get that
Hmm.
privacy at the same time.
Who who are your main prospects, or who are the main? What's your normal member look like that is on GymShare?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a fairly diverse user base. We actually call our users gymmers. And so typically, right, it's not for everybody, but typically we see a little bit more women versus men who come to and use GymShare, mainly just because what we found is that, women who especially have kids, right? A huge part about GymShare is instead of having to drop your kid off at daycare or find a babysitter or, having to not work out with your spouse so your spouse can watch your kids, whatever, is that you can actually bring your kids to GymShare, right? To a gym that designates that's okay. And so not only is the fact of the privacy, but it's also the fact that they get to keep eyes on their kids while they're exercising at the same time. And so what we found is that that demographic, specifically like moms, they absolutely love GymShare because they get to bring their kids, they get the privacy they want, they get the equipment that they want, and some women want to exercise with their spouses too. And so they're able to bring their spouses with them instead of having to, leave the spouse at home with the kids. They can all work out together. And there are other intangible effects of that too, like their kids are watching their parents exercise, right? That's a huge thing in a child's mind. If they see that the parents are actively exercising consistently, what are they going to do when they grow up,
For sure,
right?
for sure. No, and I think the last time that we talked about this, that was the first person I thought of was my wife because she does at home workouts and she doesn't go to the gym because of gym intimidation or really it's mostly because it's so far away, but also, yeah, like taking the kids is so hard. She can't find a babysitter. So being able to find a place where she could take the kids and be so close and have kind of a private setup is super nice. Um, I'm curious. Let's say I have a third car garage. I have a gym setup. What's it like for me as a gym owner? Like, can I make any money off this? Like, how much money can I make off this? What's that look like?
Yeah, of course. So In order to qualify for our platform, you need to have a gym, like I said before, that's separate from your living area with a separate entrance access from the outside. So that could be, what you mentioned, a third car garage, could be a basement with a entrance, like a walkout basement, could be a shed in the back, could be a myriad of different things. But the
Hmm.
point is, it needs to be private and it needs to be separate from your living area. As a gym host, right, we require that all gyms have a code, like a lock, like a coded lock system on the door, or if it's a garage door, whatever, have that keypad and what have you, so that the gymmers can let themselves in, let themselves out. We also require to have an indoor camera inside just to protect you as the gym host, right? At the end of the day. And with gym hosts, what we found is that because there's a lot of demand for this, what we found is that gym hosts, as long as they're promoting their gyms and have a lot of ratings and reviews, and they're actively, incorporating personal trainers into their gym business, right? Gym hosts can make anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a month passively, and possibly even more than that. Right? Like, we're a fairly new company. We've been around for a little over a year now, and the ceiling is still rising on how much gym hosts can make, right? So it's definitely a great passive income opportunity that doesn't require a whole lot of upkeep. Yeah, you have to clean your gym every once in a while and stuff like that, but we train our gymmers to do that on their own. And so at the end of the day, it's more passive for the gym host rather than something they have to actively be monitoring. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do the gym hosts look at this as more of a passive income opportunity, or is this a way to just make extra money so I can buy nicer gear? How do they look at it? Because 500 to $1,000 is great, but is that the main incentive, or are there other reasons why they're doing it?
Oh, there are plenty of other reasons why they're doing it. At the end of the day, right, if you were to create an LLC, for example, you could write off your gym equipment, right? The whole
Hmm.
purpose of, having a gym in your own space is for you as a gym host to have your own private setup, right? So why not have your private setup pay for itself? Right? So,
Exactly.
like, for example, I spent $15,000 in my gym here in Spanish Fork, right? Mainly because I built a wall and I painted it and all that stuff, and try to make it look really nice because I knew I wanted to do this. But just in sheer tax write-offs, I got $10,000 back. Right, I'm already net positive on my gym because I've listed it on GymShare. Right, I've been active in promoting and involving personal trainers and stuff like that. So my gym literally paid for itself. And so now, instead of having to go to my local big box gym, right, which is like about 10 minutes away, I could just walk into my garage and exercise. And that's it. So simple. It paid for itself.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I look at, I mean, I would love to buy a condo in like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or in Park City, but the only way you could ever really finance that is if you did it as an Airbnb, right? So like one day I'll buy a condo in Park City, Airbnb it so that I can pay for my vacation home. But essentially, you're doing the same thing with the gym. So I can say, hey, I want my own personal at home gym because I want to have a nice treadmill and some weights and stuff so that I can train for my events, but I can sign up with GymShare and it's going to basically pay for all that equipment
Yep,
and maybe more.
exactly. Oh,
So
yeah.
okay, then like as a business, are you personally making any money yet, or are you still just like investing everything back in?
So we are the so right now, because we're all working full-time jobs at the same time, in addition to working on GymShare, right, we are trying to invest as much back into the company so that we can be self-sufficient one day, right? Like, if we can push off getting investors involved in our company, we want to do that, right? Because we have a
Hmm.
strong belief that if we accomplish this, then we can achieve, right, that consistent self-sufficient growth, right, at the end of the day. And so that's why we are still working our full-time jobs at the same time, in addition to building GymShare.
Yeah. Well, and Chase, we're doing this podcast on a Saturday. I know you have your day job and you're doing GymShare. How have you learned to manage your time?
Well, I'll explain it very simply. It takes a really good conversation with my wife, right? So There are a lot of sleepless nights, I'll admit that, right? A lot of times where I put the kids to bed and then I start working on GymShare frantically so that I can wake up tomorrow morning and start working on Adobe, during Adobe hours and crush it, right? And crush my number. But at the same time, GymShare still needs to run, right? And so, like, having that conversation with my wife and, sharing that the same goal of what we're looking to accomplish with this business, right? And just making sure that she is on board. Because if my wife is not on board, then there is no GymShare, right? So
Hmm.
a really good example of this. After doing both Miller Fitness and Train Me, right, we had spent a lot of our own money on these businesses to really try to get it going. But and originally, my wife was not going to allow me to do GymShare, you know, and so she said, "Okay, I'll make a deal with you. If you can prove this concept out without spending a dime on marketing, I'll let you continue." And so I am so grateful for my wife in that respect. Well, I'm so grateful for my wife in a lot of respects. But what I'm saying is that in particular, because that forced me to basically say, okay, how do I change society without spending a dollar, without spending a dime? Nothing, right? What can I do to do that? And so what I started to do, I started reading books frantically, like The Lean Startup, the Minimalist Entrepreneur, The Cold Start Problem, right? All these different books, Made to Stick, right? Contagious, right? All these awesome books about how companies, what they did is they started out and they had certain strategies that costed zero money. They stayed super lean and didn't really even have some sort of product, right, to really share, or a service that was like fully baked out. And we're still able to have people use it and love it and become obsessed with it. So, like, I'm so grateful for my wife for, kind of forcing me in that situation, because I would have never read all those books and become educated and to really understand how do I do this. So GymShare, in the very, very beginning, when I built my gym, because my wife was totally on board with building the gym in the beginning, and really it was my gym. It was Wix. I just built a website, just a pretty basic website. I connected it to Stripe, and I used Calendly for the scheduling. And that was it. That was all what GymShare was, right in the very beginning. But we had people coming again and again and again. And then all of a sudden we were like, my gym's packed. Now what? Right? And so I had proven the concept with basically nothing, right? Except for my gym and those disparate tools all interconnected together. And then that's when we realized, after signing on our other gym, we started really understanding the gym market and understanding who our target audience was and really capitalizing on that. So we literally just started paying for marketing. So everything prior to that was literally word of mouth. So, like, I used to go to this restaurant. It's called Asa Ramen. It's in Orem. And this restaurant was awesome. So good. I had some friends introduce me to the restaurant, right? They thought it was amazing, right? And they had friends who introduced them. And then eventually, once I introduced my wife, and then my wife introduced to our friends, and then other friends, and all of a sudden, Asa Ramen has all these new customers. But did Asa Ramen ever pay us to do that? No. It's because we loved it. And that was the point I wanted to make with GymShare. Without spending a dime on marketing, how can I convince people to absolutely fall in love with GymShare? Right? And that was my whole mindset with this company. The whole foundation is based on word of mouth and people being absolutely obsessed with it. Like the gentleman I spoke about before, right? Who hasn't worked out in years, all of a sudden found GymShare, working out consistently, lost 24 pounds, and is still loving
I love that. I love that constraints breed resourcefulness, right? So you had this constraint of, hey, I've already blown a bunch of money on Train Me and these other businesses, and it's really frustrating. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, not only are we not going to give you like $1,000 budget, we're going to give you $0 budget, which is way harder. But then you all of a sudden you have to become way smarter in how you market it and how you go and find customers and how you build demand. But the other great thing too is that I think it actually helps you avoid a lot of mistakes because let's say you'd spent $5,000 or even $1,000 on a marketing campaign and it doesn't work. Then that was 1,000 of your resources that it was like a complete waste, right? Whereas, especially with social media and word of mouth and like all the resources that you can do now, I mean, even just knocking doors to tell people of your business, there's so many ways that you can validate your business idea without having to spend money. And it's interesting in meeting with other folks like yourself on the show that had tried multiple businesses, but the one that sticks is the one they were able to validate and drive revenue before they even spent money, right? So if you're able to come up with an idea and validate it before you spend money on it, that's way more powerful because then you don't have to go and hard sell anyone on it or get really frustrated. It's just you have demand coming in already.
Yep, exactly.
So I think that's cool that you're able to do that. I'm sure that I don't know, just as you've told that story, I feel like I got chills. I was just like, "Ooh, like that's so inspiring." Like she kind of like cut you off and said, "Hey, this is how you have to do it," right?
Yeah. Well, and like I said before, like I'm so grateful for my wife. She's been an amazing support. She's been my biggest cheerleader this whole time. And I just love the fact that she's willing to be this honest with me and say, "Hey, I appreciate your hustle. I appreciate what you're looking to accomplish. But at the same time, though, we got to worry about our own resources. So here you go. Like, here are your constraints. If you can pull this off, great, right? That's perfect. But this is the only way that we're going to allow you to do this, as husband and wife." So
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can completely agree. So you said you guys have GymShare's been alive for about a year. How many members are you at? How many gyms do you have on the platform?
yeah, we actually just eclipsed our 100th paying gymmer, and we actually have about 40 gyms on our platform, and we literally just started paying for marketing. So that's all been through word of mouth. I've found that. So it's one of the books I read called The Minimalist Entrepreneur, right? It talks, instead of, trying to get all this money pumped to your company by investors or VCs, and they take a lot of your equity and all that stuff, like really focusing on the bare bones and the foundation of your company from the very beginning, and really putting in sweat equity into the company to grow the business, right? So that, by the time you do get investors, right, then your company's strong foundation of those users who came to you, right, with your same, belief and draw to your company. The first 100, he said, is usually the hardest to find. But after that, then it's this next 100's a little bit easier, then easier and easier. And so by the time you do get investors in your company, if you decide to even go that route, right, then the business has that strong foundation to really back itself, right? Because our whole philosophy is become self-sufficient as fast as possible, right? Not have to rely on debt or equity or anything with our company to make it go. Because if we experience hard times, well, great, we still have that strong foundation. We're essentially building upon the rock, not upon the sand, right?
Hmm.
If you
Yeah,
understand that reference.
yeah. You want to build it on a strong foundation. Um, well, and even I mean, I've been in tech startups for several years, and I feel like the advantage you have is you continue to bootstrap and do it on your own. Is a lot of the direction is still in your control because the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that although investors are very experienced and very wise, they don't know everything. And you're stepping into a very unknown space where like no one has ever done this before, which makes you an expert, right? Like you are the expert on what GymShare can become. And so getting too many talking heads or like the wrong people on early can kind of just derail in a lot of ways, I feel like. If you could have a dream investor though, who would that be?
Ooh, I know I've said this on other podcasts, but I would say Arnold Schwarzenegger. The reason
Okay.
why is because, so my dad, when I was growing up, my dad was he was a Mr. Universe judge and trainer for bodybuilding.
Okay.
Um, so way back in the day, my dad has since passed now, but he never actually met, because he was in the bodybuilding world. right? And this is when Arnold Schwarzenegger was huge. He told me that Arnold's like number one vision and passion was to have a gym within 5 minutes of everyone in the entire country. So we share that same vision, right? Having access to a gym wherever you are, not just in the US, but wherever you are in the world. Easy, convenient access to a private experience. We know once we achieve that, we know that we can have other experiences like the gentleman who I explained earlier, and even more on that to compound on itself so that we actually end up lowering the obesity rate over time, right? That's what we want to do. And we believe that Arnold would be that same, because he shares that same vision, that we'd be able to achieve that one.
That would be fun. That's a cool story. And I feel like that would be a good reason to have him as an investor. So, Chase, it's been super awesome to have you on the show, to hear your story. And I know a lot of salespeople will get a lot out of this. Um, in like 30 seconds, if you could give one piece of advice to a listener on the show that has tried starting a couple businesses and is trying to figure out like what their thing is or what their passion is, what would that be? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, it's a great question. Don't let any haters stop you, even if that hater is yourself.
All right.
Right? If you have a vision, if you have a goal, if you have something you want to accomplish, don't let anyone tell you that it's not possible. Go for it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Awesome. Sweet. Thanks, Chase.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.